and welcome to the Zwift Race Place. I'm Kate Fravel, and today we're bringing you live coverage and commentary of the Sunday Crash by Rhino Racing. Today's route is the the Farmlands Loop in Macquarie Islands. Looking forward to this one. It's going to be a pretty flat race. As you can see here from the elevation profile, you don't even get up above 200 meters on that elevation profile, so not very much elevation at all. And I believe today we are doing 3 laps. That works out to be just about 23 kilometers, I believe. So if let me know what you think of the course over in the chat if you're watching here. And looks like it's just about 9 minutes to the start of the D race. That's the race we'll be going off with first, because with the Sunday Crash, the way this works is obviously there's individual racing within each category, but we'll also have category by category racing. So the Ds will go off first, and just checking the time gaps on Zwift Power here, it looks like the Ds are released first. The Cs follow 4 minutes after the Ds. The Bs are 3 minutes after the Cs, and the As 1 minute after the Bs. So that should make for some exciting racing today. Looking on Zwift Power here, it looks like only 2 Ds are currently registered on Zwift Power, so I'm not sure that we'll see very much from the Ds. I'm not sure what happened to the turnout in the D race. But Cs, our top rider is Jonathan Bishop, JB Bishop. He's a Rhino, and Barry Collins ranked 2nd. Gary Scott, riding for the IRL Green Dragons, he is ranked 3rd. So those are your top 3 ranked riders on Zwift Power racing in the C race. Over in the Bs, looks like another Rhino topping the rankings, Eric Kruger, followed by Glenn Tierno and Juan Jimenez. Those are the, if you orders of power by ranking, those are the top 3 ranked riders in the B race. And Eric Kruger racing for the Rhinos, Glenn Tierno racing for BAB, and Juan Jimenez for Montreal. Also quite a few Rhinos in the B race. We've got Michael Tandy, Johnny Graham, Simon Beer, Kim Homer, and James McGill. So that should be an exciting race. And then finally in the A's, doesn't look like we have any Rhinos registered here, but the top rider is Kyle, riding for McKay Cycles development team, I believe. And the second top ranked rider, Tsutomo Iwabuchi, riding for Jet. And finally, Warren Spencer. Doesn't look like he's racing for a team. Then other teams represented are TFC, Restart, F Cancer Team, Team AHDR, WTRL, No Pins R3R, and Dirt. So some well-known teams up there as well. I'm just gonna switch over now so we can see what's happening in the pens here. I do have the the HUD turned off at the moment. That was a new feature Zwift released towards the beginning of the summer, but we'll turn that back on once the racers start. You can see just about 6.5 minutes to the start of the D race now, and it looks like a decent number of riders in the pens. I believe these pens have all the riders across categories, and looking in the Zwift Companion app now, I'll see if I can find one of the Ds. We might just have to jump in with them when they start. There's only 2 of them racing, I believe. At least only 2 registered on Zwift Power, that is. Mark LeBerge and Roj Jenkins. LeBerge riding for the JZQC squad. So, looking forward to the racing today. Let me know over in the chat which category you think is going to win the day. Which category will come across the line first. Keep in mind, it's a fairly flat course, and I think the category with the largest numbers are the Cs. So the Cs have the advantage in terms of the number of riders racing, but the gap from the Bs to the Cs is only 3 minutes, and there's some strong Bs out there today, so we could definitely see a catch there. And then, of course, the As only have 1 minute to close down from themselves to the Bs. We might see a catch there as well. Should be interesting. looking now over to Zwift, just about 5 minutes to the start of the Ds. Thanks for the plug, Gordon, our leader of the Rhino squad, the promoters of this race. Shout out to them for putting on a great race here every Sunday. I don't get around to covering it every Sunday, but got lucky this Sunday because able to get on YouTube and get this video up. All right, 4.5 minutes now. All right. Let's see, looking over in the Zwift Companion app, I'm still not seeing any of our D riders showing up on the Zwift Companion app. That's how I usually follow people, is through Zwift Companion. And right now, it looks like none of them are in the pens yet. Once again, for those of you who are just joining us, D's depart first, C's 4 minutes later, B's 3 minutes after them, and A's follow the B's by 1 minute. All right. Now, under 4 minutes to the start of this race. I think we're coming up on 3.5 minutes to go. In terms of what we should expect from this course, it's going to be really crucial that categories work together to catch the category ahead because of the fact that it's such a flat course. You're not going to have, well, a flyer just isn't going to succeed. Anybody flying off the front here. Drafting is too crucial in this race. And it's definitely one for the sprinters when we think about the individual competition. So keep that in your mind because that's going to be an important component to today's race is how flat this course is. I think it's one of the flattest in the Macquarie Islands world. Under 3 minutes to the start of the Ds now. And once again, that does give a huge advantage to the C's because they do have the most riders who have showed up today. And just a heads up for anybody watching who's not a Rhino, those blue, gray, and white kind of camo kits, that is the kit of the Rhino squad. See if I can zoom in on one here. You can see this rider right here. I'm not sure who that is. But that is the official kit of the Rhinos. So watch for that if you're looking for any of the Rhino riders. A lot of the other racers have their own individual team kits. Now coming up on 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes to the start of this race. Quick reminder before the race kicks off. If you're enjoying the live stream, please subscribe to the Zwift Race Place, like the video, all the usual stuff. And if you have anything to say, feel free to leave it in the chat. All right, and get rid of that banner on the top there. And it's just about time to bring back the HUD. 1.5 minutes left to go. Let's see, I think right now we are watching Ian Radar from the Rhinos, but we'll have to jump in with one of our D riders once they start. Keep in mind, the only 2 Zwift Power registered D riders are Mark LeBerge and Rose Jenkins, but the other D riders racing in this race, because I'm sure there will be some, they can still help the Zwift Power registered Ds, even if their individual results won't count. They still play a big part in the race because it's category based, so it just adds to the benefit of the draft when you have non-Zwift Power registered riders also racing in a category. The pen's really filling out here. We're just about 45 seconds to the start. 45 seconds. And should be some good racing. Jumping down onto the starting line here. Coming up on 30 seconds. Zwift is showing 18 riders. I'm not sure if that's in the pens in general or just in the D race because these pens do consist of all the categories in the same pens, and all riders should be visible once we're racing. You aren't limited to your own category only. Alright, looks like 10 seconds to go now. Let's see which one of these Ds springs off the line first. And here we are. The Ds have started moving up towards the front. Looks like there are a lot of them here. M. Bird from Rhino Racing, and I'm assuming that Zwift Power just hasn't updated with all these Ds quite yet, because this is a huge group of Ds going off the front. So it must be a Zwift Power glitch there, because this is a lot of Ds to only have 2 registered on Zwift Power. And I know for a fact that M. Bird is registered on Zwift Power, as well as Michael Alls. Both of those rhinos should be on Zwift Power, experienced racers on Zwift. So I think we're gonna have to disregard what I said earlier about there only being 2 Zwift Power registered Ds. That seems to be a problem that Zwift's having. We're in the front with Jay Collins right now, and another reminder, I believe that the Cs are departing 4 minutes after the Ds, so that means that when that elapsed time clock hits 4 minutes, that's when our Cs are going to be leaving the pens, and that's when we should jump back with them. An early lead group forming here in the D race, consisting of Jay Collins, K. Bird, M. Kassane, and Michael Alls. I think that K. Schmidt on the back there as well. 3 rhinos up here in this front group. Bird, Alls, and that third rider, I think, is Collins here that we're watching. Nope, Collins on the front, so I was wrong about that. Looking back through the field, let's see, it looks like there's another bunch of D riders chasing from behind. See if we can go to the overhead on this. They're kind of discombobulated back here. I think that front group is going to be the one to watch. They're going to be our leading Ds on the day. They already have a gap of about 3 seconds, and it's a very flat course here. Just a little bit of incline towards the end. We took a look at the route profile earlier. Just recapping for anybody who wasn't here. Looks like this group of Ds is holding pretty strong out in the front. It'd be nice if a couple other Ds could bridge that gap to help them out here, because a group of 6 Ds probably not going to be able to hold off that entire C field. I would anticipate a catch later on in the race. But you never know. It's always possible. David McKinley in chat. Once again, anything to say, feel free to leave it in the chat. So we're still in with K. Schmidt here. Let's see, it's now M. Morgan on the front. This was the third rhino that I was talking about earlier. 2.2 watts per kilo. They're moving at 21 miles per hour. So that's a decent speed to hold on the flats here, especially for a smaller group like this. And if we look back in the distance now, a more organized group of Ds chasing from behind, now only 1 second gap from those Ds behind to the Ds ahead. See them chasing in the distance. They should start to bridge that gap pretty soon. Looks like M. McKinley from LVTTT, yep, is on the front leading this chase. Just hovering between 1 and 2 seconds. We need somebody to just go off the front, try and start to bridge here. Still totally flat course, 0% gradient, as we're twisting through the forests here of the Macquarie Islands. We will come to the place where the road splits, but we will not be going up the Macquarie KOM. I believe we stay to the right, and that keeps us on the flats, so no real big climbs on today's course. And our C is now 30 seconds to the start of the C race. We should probably head back with them pretty soon to see what their start is like. So, see if I can jump in with the C's here. Sorry, this is a B, but we're back in the pens, so that's the real important thing here. They should be starting any minute now. See if I can go through here, find some C's. And looks like they may be out on course already. Here we are, jumping in with the back of the C's. This is Gordon Sloan, leader of the Rhinos, and a key part in organizing this race. say thank you to him if you get a chance, if you're on Discord right now. Moving up through the field towards the front, see here Gordon Brost on the front of this race, it looks like. I believe he just mentioned on Discord earlier today that he was just recently downgraded from a B to an almost B back in the C category today, so he should be a huge help to our Cs out there, and it wouldn't surprise me if they catch the Ds before the end of lap 2 on today's course. See Ed's Lammy up in there as well. Another notable Rhino to watch out for. I see Opie Taylor racing today. Appreciate that name. For those of you who don't know, that is the son of Andy Taylor in the Andy Griffith Show. Tom, sorry, I don't know that that's Tom. T. Slominski now off the front of the race. Looks like he's leading the charge towards the Ds, and that gap should still be right around 4 minutes. I don't know that the Cs have made much headway. We'll see if we can get Zwift Power Live up and working now. Looking here to the live tab. Alright, looks like Zwift Power Live may be in order. And yeah, I'd have to say that it is. Jack Collins is the first Zwift Power registered D racer currently, and it looks like Mac Bird from the Rhino, Mark Morgan from the Rhinos, and Michael Alls from the Rhinos also registered there. Jopie Will, Kenneth Schmidt, Mike San, Mike McKinney, Paul Kuehler, and Roge Jenkins are the other riders to watch from the D race. Those are our Zwift Power registered riders. And right now, Zwift Power is reading the gap from the Ds to the Cs at 3 minutes and 36 seconds. For those of you curious about how the category v category race is playing out, looks like we've fallen back in the field a little bit. This is a pretty big group of C riders all bunched up together here. I'd say that's 20 to 30 riders riding here. See JB, Jonathan Bishop, at the back of this race. He's a huge asset to the Cs in today's competition. And there we are, the back of the C field showing up on the Zwift leaderboard now. That's reading in at 3 minutes and 35 seconds to our D group on the road. Guess he's a little off the back, but moving up here, it looks like still around 4 minutes. Not sure how accurate the Zwift Power gaps are. Here we are with Kay Schmidt leading off the front of this race. Checking Zwift Power now. It does not look like... Yeah, Kenneth Schmidt is registered on Zwift Power. So this is your lead Zwift Power registered rider on the road here. Kassane also registered on Zwift Power. The D is really pushing right now, and I believe that our Bs have also gotten out on course. So let's jump in with them, see what they're up to. Moving to the front of this B pack. It's more challenging than it looks. Here we are towards the front, right in the middle of the race here, actually. Oops, jumped up to the Cs. Back up a little bit. There we are. T. Robson leading them out from the Art Squad. Jay Graham from the Rhinos also up here as well. Paskovich, LeBlanc, riders just jostling for position here. Leaders are changing all the time. Looks like a pretty big gap from our Bs as well. Trying to see if we can get an overhead view on this. Tree is kind of getting in my way here. But anyway, I see E. Kruger, also from the Rhinos, up here in this front group. Looking now at the gap from the Bs to the Cs, another important gap to check on here. Let's see, looks like those are now showing on Zwift Power, and our A's are underway too. So quick update on gaps. The C's now only 3 minutes and 19 seconds behind the D's. The B's, looks like they're just over 3 minutes behind the C's. So they've actually lost some ground to the C's. The C's moving really fast out there right now. And the A's have also lost some ground. Oh, we just got an update. They're about 1 minute and 20 seconds back behind the B's. as a reminder, they started a minute behind the Bs, so it'll be interesting to see if the As make any catches out there today. A significantly smaller field than we have in the rest of the races. And according to Zwift Power, 9 Zwift Power registered riders in the front D group, 30 for C, 39 for B, and 14 for A. So that gives you an idea of some of the group sizes out there. The C's holding pretty steady. 3:14 is the gap from the C's to the D's currently. So they're pulling them in pretty fast right now. But I don't know if it'll be fast enough. They're coming up on... Well, the D's are around 3/4 of the way around the course currently. Today's racing should take roughly 30 to 40 minutes, would be my prediction. Maybe even a little bit faster than that if they're really moving out there. R. Jenkins, the first D rider, has been caught by our C's. And moving up to the front of the C field here, there's Jay Tandy, another Rhino. Here we are. Hennon at the front of the C race, and it looks like the gap from the C's to the trailing D's right now is about 2 minutes. We got one kind of straggler at 1:08, but the rest of these are around 2 minutes. 2 minutes ahead of the C's. And if we move up even farther, it looks like our lead D's are even another minute ahead of them. So around 3 minutes still is the gap. Our lead D's looking pretty strong right now. 2.5 watts per kilo here with, I believe this is Kenneth Schmidt. Hussein pushing 2.8 and looks to be right around the 2.5 to 3 watts per kilo range. 21 miles per hour we saw there for just a second, but now they're starting to kick it up. 4% gradient, so they're going to be coming over this little rise here in the course pretty soon. And after that, I believe they descend just a little bit back through the start-finish line, and that's another lap done for these riders here. We are currently 4.4 miles into the race, and the race, just checking now, I believe that this race is 14.4 miles. That's 23.4 kilometers long. So we're coming up on 1 lap done. 1 lap should be just around 4 miles. So they might actually even be past the 1 lap mark right here. Actually, no, I believe it is at that orange Z that you can see on the little mini-map elevation profile in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Descending, negative 12% gradient now. It's pretty steep here. They're really starting to move. And we can see the pens now off to our left. The banner just up ahead. That'll mark our first lap down for the D racers out on course, and it seems like a perfect time to take a look at some of the gaps. Current gaps right now are 2:59 from the C's to the D's. Then just another 3 minutes, a little bit under now from the B's to the C's, and out to well over a minute from the A's to the B's. So the A's continuing to lose ground. The B's and C's kind of ping-ponging back and forth. We don't have a definite gap between them quite yet. Zwift Power has been a little bit varied, but the C's are definitely closing on the B's. That I can say for sure. That gap now down to 2:43, and the C's have hit the rise. They'll be descending down in towards their first lap finish pretty soon as well. All right, looking back here, your D's have gone through the 1 lap banner. Let's see if we can jump back with the lead C's. It looks like they're now... All right, sorry, that's the back of the C group. Moving up through the C's. Looks like the C's are pushing pretty hard as well. At the front of the C's here, Gordon Brost still pushing on the front. We saw him leading out of the gates, and looks like he's still on the front. As I said earlier, he's going to be a big asset to the C's. I believe he's borderline CB, so definitely a strong rider out there today. Looking to the overhead view, this group has diminished considerably, now down to closer to 15 to 20 riders, as opposed to the near 30 we saw earlier. But there's still some stragglers back there, as you can see from this view. another group just down the road, and a couple riders trying to bridge that gap in the middle. Not sure if they've been dropped off or if they are, in fact, trying to get across. But leading the C's now, S. Whippy from Inside Racing, and we can see the gaps to the back of the D race now about 3 seconds to those rear. Sorry, 30 seconds, not 3 seconds, to the rear of the D race. That, of course, is not our main group still. The leaders still a couple minutes ahead of them on the road. S. Whippy seems to be having a dropout here. We see a 0 watt reading in... Oh, sorry, that's not a dropout. He is super tucking. My bad. Coming across the bridge here, you can see the banner just across this left-hand turn. And the C is just about to finish up their first lap as well. Alright, another quick look at the gaps because I'm curious to see how our Bs are doing, and we will jump back with them in just a moment. But it looks like the Bs are now under 3 minutes to the Cs. They've clawed back only about 6 seconds, so they still have quite a bit of work to do. They're about to catch the first, the real back of the D squad. Yeah, the first Ds have been caught by the Bs now, and the As still pushing hard. Looks like they're quite a ways behind the Bs though, out to about 1:40, getting close to a 2-minute gap between the A's and the B's. I'm thinking that we might not see a catch there at all. The D's still leading comfortably, 2 minutes and 24 seconds from the C's to the D's, and the D's approaching close-ish to the halfway point out on course. The C's are going to have to pick up the pace if they want to make that catch, because I know there are a lot of strong D riders out there on course still. Anyway, let's try and jump back with the B's now. See if we can find them on course. This looks like that's the back of the D group. For some reason, I cannot seem to find the front of groups on the first try here today. But here we are with the front B group. P. Lewis from Race 3R, that's who we're watching right now, sitting in around 4th position out on course. And Ian Radar, now, that was the rider that we saw at the back of the C group on the leaderboard there. 1:03 from the B's to the first stragglers in the C's. Interesting to see if the B's will be able to make that catch. And they haven't been super successful so far. As I mentioned before, they really haven't brought back very much time on those C's. Now 57 seconds to, I believe, our second C group on the road. Looks like we're gonna pass through the finishing banner here. That's 1 lap down, 2 to go for our B's. And I don't think we've had a chance to check in with the A's at all yet, so let's try and jump back with them now on course. Here we are. Whoops, I ended up with myself in the pens. Here's your lead A group. It's a little bit larger than I was anticipating because it appears that there were more riders riding than were registered on Zwift Power, but still not a huge group. We go to the overhead. Only about 10 riders here in the front group of the A's. Coming around the bend there. 1 straggler off the back. Jump back in with that group. They're also approaching the finish to their first lap. That'll be 1 down, 2 to go for them as well. We can see the banner up ahead now. Cross over the bridge, left-hand turn, and they are there. Looks like they're moving considerably faster than some of the other categories through here. They were still in super tuck range, almost to the other side of the bridge, moving at 37 miles per hour here. 36 miles per hour is the threshold for a super tuck, for those of you who don't know. 40 miles per hour now, they're really speeding. It's a bit of a downhill section here still. It'll flatten out in just a moment. And let's check in on the gaps for our A racers. Looks like they're now still over a minute behind the B's, about 1:20 now. So they brought that back just a little bit, and hoping for our A's that they can close that down some more. 1:57 from the C's to the D's now, and we're approaching the halfway point on course. So that's exciting. I think our C's are catching their sights now. except I've just gotten an update here, and the C is back out to 2:04 now, so they're hovering right around that 2-minute mark. Let's see if we can jump a little bit farther up. I think if we go all the way around here, actually, try going forward. See if we can find one of our other categories out on course. This looks to be a trailing group in the B race. They're not quite leading the Bs, but they're towards the back. There's even a couple Cs ahead of them here. E. Kruger now from the Rhino squad, he's still hanging on to this lead group, and it looks like this group consists of just over 20 riders, so 20 to 25 rider range here. That is a huge group. We're watching them go by here. I'd have to say, I think the Bs have a real advantage with a group of that size. We saw earlier that our Cs had split, so we'll have to check and see if they're still split up into two groups, or if they've managed to rejoin, getting that full benefit of the draft. There's Opie Taylor once again. Jump in with him for a second, just get a look at the name. Moving on now. Looks like JB, Jonathan Bishop, may have been dropped from the lead group of Cs. He's in 35th out of 50 right now. That was unexpected. Expected him to stay in the lead group up there. Maybe taking it easy today. Moving up a little bit farther. 26th place. Looks like the lead Cs may still be fractured a little bit. This group, not the lead group. Second group out on the road, it looks like. Barry Collins riding in this group from the Rhinos. We can move up here, though. This is the lead group out on course. And let's see if we can get it. Yeah, not sure that this is the full force of the Cs that I was anticipating. Looks like only about 15 riders in this group, and that is unfortunate for our C riders. It seems to be affecting their chase of the Ds, because the Ds still managing to hold them off. Let's check on the gap now. That looks to be 1 minute and 56 seconds, so they're back under the 2-minute mark. Curious to see if they can catch them before lap 2 is finished. Checking in on the chat here. Christos Manoios says, excellent coverage, might give it a shot next week. And to that, I'd have to say thank you, and also definitely give it a shot next week. Great race, and I like to race it when I'm not too dead in the legs to get on the bike. And that's when I end up covering it, like today. Unfortunately, I had a cyclocross race earlier, so not able to get in there with the riders today, but it's always fun to cover this race. It really is some exciting action here. And speaking of action, it looks like the gap from the Cs to the Ds, we can now see it on the leaderboard, 1:47 and falling to Kenneth Schmidt at the back of this D group. M. Morgan on here as well, and they have hit the incline. You can see it's quite twisty on the mini-map up there. A lot of roads running through here. Morgan just off the back of that group, it looks like. Struggling to stay on. Kassane here as well from the IRL Green Dragon squad. And Michael Alls leading them up the climb. He looks really strong. 3 watts per kilo as it hits 11% gradient. Pushing up over the top here. And now only 1 minute and 20 seconds from the Cs to the Ds. Part of that will be the fact that the Ds have really started to go uphill now. But I think that gap is falling, and it's falling fast. Gickling from the V squad, he is leading them out along with Gordon Brost. Those are our 2 C racers really doing some work at the front right now, it appears. 1 minute and 25 seconds, now the gap. Gordon Brost at the front of the Cs, and Michael Alls leading at the front of the Ds. 2 Rhinos, each leading their own respective categories, looking for a victory for themselves and their categories out here today. Both awesome team players. Alls now sitting in the middle of this pack. Kassane from IRL Green Dragon moving to the front. And it looks like the Ds are approaching the finish to their second lap. Still a little ways out, but it's not too far now. Once again, a quick reminder, we are doing 3 laps of this course today. This is the Farmlands route in the Makuri Islands, the newest world on Zwift. All right, looking over here, the D's still coming through this transition period, and here we are. The elevation profile on the minimap has just popped back in. They're going to be descending back down into the finishing banner now, and for some reason, our leaderboard seems to be a little bit confused. We have B's showing behind the D's, and A's showing ahead of them, but hopefully that sorts itself out soon enough. Believe that has to do with the fact that they were moving from different sections on the minimap. Michael Alls with an aero power up here. He's looking to get into the Super Tuck. I think he dropped down to 0 watts for a second there, but he's only moving at 34 miles per hour. You gotta be at 36 to hit the Super Tuck. So, not sure what he was thinking there, but he seems to be back in with the group. Once again, a quick reminder, our A's were moving at 40 miles per hour through this banner last time. D's at 33. That shows some of the difference in speeds between the ways the two groups took this section of the course. 10 miles down now. 10 of 14, I believe that is. So we're getting pretty close here to the finish. 1 lap to go. Let's check in on the gap. Looks to be 2 minutes and 7 seconds. If I'm not mistaken, that gap has gone back out. So RC's losing some ground again. Interesting to see if they can pull that back. I think the D's will start to hit the flats pretty soon, and the C's will have a little bit more downhill left to ride. They've just hit the steepest part of it now. We see some Super Tucks in the pack, well over the 36 miles per hour mark, as they're bombing down in towards that finishing banner. Now, hopefully we'll see some good racing to the finish line out there today. A couple sprint finishes would be pretty awesome. And it'll be an interesting sprint because, as you can see from the way our different categories are taking this, it's definitely downhill. Right around -3%, -4% through the finish, I believe. Wasn't paying too much attention, but it's a solid downhill, and you're coming off of -12% earlier in the descent, so riders are going to have a lot of speed. A lot of that is going to be about timing, staying in the draft until the last minute. You don't want to be out on the front too early because the wind is just going to slow you down too fast. But ultimately, I think riders just need to pick a place to sprint and stick to it, get out in front, and hopefully we see some of that exciting sprinting out there on course today. We'll have to keep our eyes peeled to make sure we don't miss the finish of that D race. Provided they are the ones finishing first, we can't know that for sure because our C's are chasing hard, as we can see here. Let's see if we can catch up with the B race. Here we are, the lead B group. They're just about to come through the 2 laps down, 1 lap to go marker. Looks like a couple riders on the front here. I keep assuming people's first names based on their first letter. Sorry about that. Oh, Martin. Paskovich in here as well. These riders, looks like they're about to catch a drop. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe that is a B rider off the front. No, that is M. Galasso. I believe he is the lead A rider, and he has now passed the B's, possibly. He's been pushing over 5.5 watts per kilograms consistently throughout this race. So I'd stand to assume that he is possibly not registered on Zwift Power, but we can check and confirm that for sure right now. So looking over to Zwift Power, it appears that our first Zwift Power registered A racer on the road is in fact James Phillips, and not that sandbagger off the front there. So we can disregard him. Really is unfortunate when riders choose to sandbag, but of course we can always just ignore it. So we don't have to pay attention to that. What we should pay attention to, though, is the gap between the B racers and the C racers, because I'm looking at the graph here on Zwift Power, and the graph showing the gaps is really getting kind of smushed, and that is because the gaps have come down so much. Gaps from the B's to the C's now is under 2 minutes, so I think we could see some catches, possibly really close to the finish line. I think this is going to be a pretty exciting race. And I should note our A's have finally gotten their gap under a minute. Now just got an update here. 55 seconds from the A's to the B's. And the C's have it down to 54 from themselves to the D's. That should be really close. And I'm hoping we'll see a catch right around the finish. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw a catch on that last incline before we descend down in. Could very possibly happen and would be pretty cool to watch. Especially if we have an intercategory sprint, which does happen occasionally, because just because the D's have been caught by the C's, hypothetically speaking, does not mean that the D's have lost the race. They still have the potential to outsprint some of those C's, and I know that Michael Alls, currently riding in that lead D group, is a really strong sprinter. Whether or not he'll be able to compete with some of our faster C riders, like Gordon Brost, also a really strong sprinter, that I don't know, but hopefully we'll get to find out pretty soon, because the finish is coming up in just about, well, looks like about 2 miles for our C's, but it should be even closer for our D's, so we'll jump up with them. Michael Alls now, he is our lead, not our lead, he's in the lead group of D racers on the road, and it looks to be, the gap looks to be right around 59 seconds still from the D's to the C's. They have the possibility of holding them off. I wouldn't say that it's a guaranteed catch from D's to C's, because that gap has not gotten under 50 seconds all race, if I am not mistaken. Saw Gordon Sloan pop up on the leaderboard here. Talked with him a little bit earlier, and it sounds like he's coming off of a 75-mile ride. So if you're wondering why he's not contributing so much to our front C group right now, that's because his legs are really tired. And so shout out to him for getting out there and racing today. That is not something that I expected. He mentioned earlier on Discord he didn't think he was gonna get in there, but sometimes it's too hard to resist a good race, and that's definitely what this is right now. Michael Alls, still the rider we're watching here. Kenneth Schmidt, Hussein, Kuehler, M. Bird, and M. Morgan. Those are the other riders in this lead D group. Will they be able to hold those C's off? I don't know, because the C's are coming on pretty strong. 52 seconds now from Gordon Brost, our lead C rider, to the D's. That's going out to 54 now, so maybe they have a shot still. 56 seconds. I don't know, it seems to be ping-ponging back and forth, but as I said earlier, I haven't seen it get under 50 seconds. Right now, the race between the D's and the C's seems to be the one to watch, as our D's are approaching 1.5 miles to go to the finish now. This should be really close. There we go. We just saw it get under 50 seconds, that gap from the C's to the D's. 48 as Rippers comes to the front on the C's. Let's see if we can check in with that C group real quick. They seem to be pushing hard right now. If we look at the differences in watts per kilo, looks like closer to 3 in the C's, closer to 2.5 in the D's. Speeds, I'm not sure not totally sure right now. Looks like our C's were closer to 25 miles per hour, on the flats, and the D's closer to 20, so we'll just have to see. 47 seconds now is the gap. Slaminski on the front for the C's. McBird still in the middle of this D-pack for Rhino Racing. Alls also up here. And M. Morgan, are the 3 Rhinos left in the lead D's. Couple other riders here too. Hussein from IRL Green Dragon, now dropping a draft boost. Seems like a weird time for that, since she or he, I'd have to check on that, is currently off the front of this D group. 4.4 watts per kilo, and Hussein is making a big move for IRL Green Dragon. Looks like Alls is the first rider to start chasing. They're not too far from the finish now. They're going to come up over this little rise here and then descend down into the finish line. There's a great overhead shot of some of the graphics that have gone into building this world. I believe that there's actually a video from World of Zwift, what goes into building a world. But anyway, back to the race. Hussein now with 1 second to Kenneth Schmidt, 2 seconds to Michael Alls. This is a huge move, and T. Slominski leading the C's, still 41 seconds back. It's still quite a gap to close, and I don't see it coming down before the finish. Our C's might be out of luck. S. Whippy now bringing that gap down to 38 seconds, and it's still falling. We could see a catch pretty close to the line. I'm going to bet on Kassane from IRL Green Dragon leading the D's. I'm going to predict that this rider beats our lead C's to the line, but our C's may prove me wrong, down to 35 seconds now, and we're only about halfway up and over this little rise here. Now, as for our A's and B's, checking on Zwift Power real quick, looks like the gap there is still considerable. The B's are about 30 seconds behind the C's, so we could potentially see a catch there, and our A is still quite a bit farther back after that. Gordon saying 33 seconds from C to D, and that looks to be about right. Kassane still leading them out from IRL Green Dragon. Gordon with another update, 25 seconds C to B. That gap is coming down, although my reading is at 38 seconds from Zwift here. It looks like Slominski, J. Tandy, those riders falling behind, but I can't be sure. Looks like the gap, I don't know, it's going to be tight between our C's and D's. The D's, led by M. Kassane, now coming over the top of this little rise here, and I believe that's Mac Bird passing out Kassane for the first place position on the road. Mac Bird now leading in the D race, and I see Pete Bueller also off the front. Believe that's a misreading though. Kassane is currently in second place. Mac Bird still leading out our D's on course, passing Gordon Sloan there. Dropped C rider. In the C's, I don't see them anywhere. Let's see if we can turn this around. I'm not seeing the C's anywhere else on course. We're getting really close to the finish line here. I think that our D's might have it. And I don't know that we're even going to see a sprint for first from these D's, because Mac Bird seems to be out in front right now. Looks like Kassane is the second place D rider currently, 4 seconds back. But they're not closing quite yet. Mac Bird still has quite a gap coming over the bridge, and I might be too early to call it, but I'm going to call it for Mac Bird as your first place D rider. Galasso now pushing hard. That's not a rider that matters, we've determined. And there we go. Kassane first through. Mac Bird first through. Kassane in second. There's Gordon Sloan. Kenneth Schmidt pushing hard, but I think that one's going to go to Michael Alls for that third place finish. Here we go. This is the sprint from the C's. C. Bayless leading them out. Now it's C. Sullivan from Eat Dirt. Sullivan gonna go into first place. Looks like Slominski might have second. There we go. Slominski through the line next. Let's see if we can catch up with the B's. Here we are back in the race with some of our B's out on course. Moving up through the A's. The B's should be finishing extremely soon as well. Here we are. I think this is the lead group of A's. Here we are. Looks like we're just watching some of the stragglers finish up from the B race. Missed that finish, but let's jump back with our A's. M. Boardman from the World Elite Zwifters pushing hard. Jay Phillips to the front now. Jay Young. I think Young might have this one. It's very close on the line between Young and Phillips. We'll have to wait for the Zwift Power confirmation from that one. But I think that categories finished more or less in standard order. I think that went DCBA. We'll wait for the Zwift Power confirmation on that. Let's check in on the chat. Gordon said that the B's were second behind the C's, and we just missed that B finish because they were so close. We saw some of our C's sprinting across the line and just couldn't get back with the B's fast enough to see them finish. But let's check over on Zwift Power now. We don't have any confirmed results quite yet. If you want to see the results to this race, I have left a link down in the description below. So check that out now that all categories have finished up. Zwift Power results should come in pretty soon. If you enjoyed this, please remember to subscribe to the Zwift Race Place for more live coverage and Zwift tips and such. And don't forget to like this video. If you enjoyed it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Oh, here we go. We just got some confirmation on results. McBird win for the D's. We saw that. Sane in second, Alls in third. Kenneth Schmidt in fourth, and Paul and Kuehler in fifth. That was as expected. Sully from Eat Dirt. He won. I think that's a he. Won in the C category, followed by Slominski. And that other rider I thought might have been up there. Not seeing them on the leaderboard here. Gordon Brost a little bit farther down in the C's. I was predicting a good sprint finish from him. Just wasn't quite at the top. Then Oscar Martin win for the B's, followed by Paul Lewis and Henrik Stavik. Then back in the A's, James Young picked up the win there, followed by James Phillips and Darren Bramwell. All right, that's your finish across all the categories out there today. Once again, don't forget to like, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.